Everyone knows the bottle, but do you know the story behind it? Welcome to Behind the Bottle by Celia Maestri, where the real stories of the tequila world are finally poured out. From bold beginnings to industry secrets, it's time for a deeper sip into the lives behind the spirits. Pour a glass, take a seat. The story's just getting good.
Welcome, Samantha, to Behind the Bottle, Tequila Tales. It's a pleasure to have you.
Thank you very much. I'm honored to be here.
Perfect. I wanted to tell the audience today something very special about how we met and how you were hired. Because I don't think this is a conventional way, in any way, shape, or form, to hire a person to work for Casa Maestri. Yeah. So, could you tell us when we met?
So we met early 2018 when I was still working at WeWork. And at the time, I had toured Jose and Jeff for a new office for Jeff's new business, Platinum Brands. I remember it being very difficult. And I remember that they kept calling on the phone with someone about the contract as an advice to give. And so finally I was like, you know what? Why don't you guys come in? We can sit down, have a conversation. It was one of the most complicated contracts or negotiations I'd ever done. So I was like, what is going on? So I invited you guys into the office to go over the contract. And that's where I got to meet you, Miss Celia.
And do you remember what I said? After you did the tour and we talk and we get on with the contract.
I remember that we talked about, you started asking me questions, and, you know, I love to have a conversation. So I was like, yeah, you know, my family's from the same place. And then I remember you just kind of standing up and you saying, this will do just fine. And you walked away. And I remember being very confused at the time because I was like...
No, but I asked you, where are you from?
Oh, you did. You asked me where I was from. I told you I was from Houston, but then my family was from Michoacan, which then ended up leading that your family was also from Michoacan.
Correct.
I think we had common ground there. And then afterwards, you just started having a conversation like we're doing now. I remember it flowed very easily. I remember being very intrigued by your presence. You have a thing about yourself whenever you enter a room that eye just automatically draws to you. So I remember asking myself, who is this lady? What does she do? And I remember in my core, I was like, I want to be like her. Mm-hmm. And
well, I think by now you are.
If I could be 10% the woman that you are, and I would be honored on what that might be.
You are. But. So then I called you. Well, I asked for your phone number, or I told Jose to ask you for the phone number.
No.
Which usually you don't ask for the phone number of an employee of other place, you know. But when I have a kind of magnet to a person and getting my interest, so I called you and invited you for an interview.
You did. As I mentioned, you walked up abruptly after our meeting, and so I think the funniest part, after I was a little bit confused, I was like, what just happened? And then I was like, the contract didn't even get signed. So I ended up having to call you guys back, and I was like, hey, we had a great conversation, but, you know, are we moving forward or not? And that's when you had on the phone, and you were like, Samantha, I don't think you had called me after 3 days, and you told me, Samantha, I don't think you took my job offer seriously. And I was like, so you did offer me a job? Because at the time we were like, what just happened? And I wasn't looking for a job. I was very happy where I was at. And I was like, you know what? I was so intrigued by you, and I was so intrigued that just by the situation that happened, that I was like, what's the worst that could happen? So during the call, you invited me to come back to your house so we could discuss the opportunity more. It ended up being at your ranch, which I was like, sure, you know.
And it's like an hour away from Houston.
It was like 3 hours away from Houston.
Because you were in Galveston.
Yeah, I was in Galveston. So I remember being like, who is this lady? And I'm just like, she's offering me I'm not looking for a job. You're offering me a job. And then I'm like, you know what? Sure. Like, I remember talking to my mom, and I was like, Mom, they're offering me this job, but she wants me to drive to Victoria. And I'm just kind of like, what's going on? And she's like, and I'm so sorry, but she was like, you've done dumber shit that's led to less. Sorry. That you could take this risk and go to Victoria. And I was like, okay, you're right. So then I called you and I was like, yes, I can go. I'll be there in the morning. So I remember I was like, just send me the address and I'll meet you at your ranch. And then the morning of Saturday, I was getting ready to go and drive, and I get a call from you, and you're like, hey, Samantha, I was thinking about it. There's no reason for you to drive to Victoria. Why don't you just come to my house? We'll drive together, and we could talk on the way. And then, if you decide that you don't want to take the job, we'll drive back on it. Honestly, at the time, I was a little taken aback because I was like, oh, what happens if I get there? And I'm like, I don't
have a car to do what?
Yeah, I was like, it wasn't like I was going to lunch. I was,
how are you going to escape?
That did occur to me for a little bit. So then I get to your house, and I'm like, you know what? I already committed. So I get to your house, and then that's when I meet Maria Leon.
So you realize that you were not going to drive with me only. You will go with my friend Maria.
Yes.
We're going to go to the ranch.
But also, when I met Maria, I was like, is she your personal bodyguard? I get in the car, and she gets in the car, and she goes, so you're going to work for Celia? And I was like, I don't know. And she's like, you better not mess with her. Okay. No, I'm not messing with her. So you ended up getting in the car. We ended up driving down to Victoria. I will say the entire situation was, to this day, I still laugh about it because...
Yeah, but I remember that you said it was kind of similar to a movie that you saw or a friend or something like that.
Well, I ended up telling my mom, right? I was like, this, as I mentioned, like I had gotten this job offer. And so nothing to do with you. But she was like, Sam, what if she's part of like the cartel? Because and to be said, she's not. But all we knew at the time was that she was Mexican. That she, obviously...
My parents were from Michoacan.
Your parents were from Michoacan. I mean, and then...
I'm coming from Veracruz, but my distillery is in Tequila, Jalisco.
It was just like too good to be true. And my mom's like, and so why is she asking you to go there? And I'm like, I don't know, Mom. Like, I'm just going to go. And so she's like, Sam, you have to be careful. So then we're driving to the ranch, and I start to lose signal. Oh, because the entire time I'm like, I'm just going to turn on my GPS so you can track me. If you don't hear from me tomorrow, I was with Miss Celia. And she goes, no, she's going to take you, and then you're going to cross the border, and we're never going to hear from you again. And I was like, Mom, no, like, that's not... And then I meet Maria Leon, and I'm like, okay. It's like, maybe.
So make it worse.
But we ended up having a really nice drive there. And then the funniest part is, as we're getting to the ranch, I start losing signal. So I do start getting a little bit like anxious. Like, okay, what's going on? I remember driving up to the most beautiful ranch I've ever seen in my life. To this day, the facade of it is, you have impeccable taste. I will say that. And then I remember that you parked, and something was going on. You were like, I have to go. And so you were like, Maria Leon will take care of you and show you the property. And I'm like, okay. So you leave, and then Maria Leon's like, you have a bunker in your property.
Yes, we do.
Again.
It was built in the 50s from the previous owners of that ranch.
I get there, and the first thing that Maria Leon wants to show me is the bunker. And so... I'm like, no, this lady is not bad. And so I get there, and she's like, okay. Opens the door, and I was like, yeah, beautiful bunker. Yeah, very nice. And she's like, no, get in. And I'm like, no, I can see it from here. It's fine. They remodeled it. Get in. And I'm like, okay.
They're going to close the door.
The entire time, I'm like, okay. So I was like, how about you go first? I haven't seen the stairs. And Maria Leon's like, get in. I'm like, okay. So I get into the bunker, and then I'm like, oh, and I like run out. And then I come back, and you're now at the house, and Maria Leon's walking behind me the entire time. And I'm just like, you know what, Miss Celia, it's been a long drive. Do you mind if I just kind of freshen up a little bit, and we'll come back and talk? And you're like, yeah, no worries. We'll come back down for dinner. And I remember going back up to the room, and I was calling my mom. I was like, Mom, I don't know what I'm doing. And my mom's like, you're already there. Like, it can't be, just relax. Just take some time. And I'm like, okay. So then I freshened up. then I came downstairs, and I remember coming down for dinner. We had a really nice dinner, and then you're like, okay, let's go have a talk I think it was in the dining room.
In the dining
In
room.
the dining room. And at the time, and
The dining room, living room.
it was one of the
Okay, yeah.
one of the areas. And I remember you sitting there and being like, first you were like, Samantha, I need to apologize because all this was a little crazy. And I just realized that I just invited a total stranger down to my ranch. You don't know me, I don't know you, and I'm so sorry. And when you said that, I swear I just felt like, okay, I'm going to make it back home today.
Yes.
And then the first question that you ever asked me, and I think this was why I decided to take the job at the time, was that you put up your hand and you said, what do you see? And I said, well, I see your hand, but I see the wall and I see the pool. And I don't remember exactly everything that was behind your hand. And at the time I was like, do I keep going? And you were like, no, that's it. So I own a tequila distillery. My name is Celia Maestri. These are my brands. You showed me your beautiful magazine that I had seen. And you said, I am in need of someone to help me sell my products. And I think that you would be the perfect person for that. And I was a little bit overwhelmed, but I've never felt so sure about something when I decided to take that position. So, and I remember, I don't even think I asked you what the pay was, nothing. I was just like, I'm in.
Yes.
Whatever we need to do to bring this from the bottom up, we'll do it. And
you've been doing a great job.
well, thank you very much.
One thing that means that for me, for everybody who wants to interview a person is, if the person answers you that you see the hand, that is not the right person for you to hire. If a person see behind the bottle, behind the hand, means that they can see themselves in the future. And they see what is behind that hand. They see through. This is my key of hiring. When I hire a person, it's one of the things that I ask, because it's when you see if the person can see themselves growing and elevate themselves to her potential. So this is what has been the journey with Samantha, which was a rough beginning. Yeah, myself too, how I invite a stranger all the way to my ranch, but I was in a hurry. I had to take care, I had to take care of my house, the ranch, the kids, the employees, the factory. So sometimes I don't have time to be in all the places at the same time. So I had to use whatever I can. Anyway, so Samantha, tell the audience, because your story is very interesting. When you start working for us, where I send you to be trained?
Oh my gosh. Okay, so I remember I was sent to Mexico. Well, after we had the visit, I was like, okay, well, I have to give in my 2 weeks. And so my first date was April 1st, 2018. That was my first date. And before you sent me to get trained, my first day on the job was actually at the WSWA convention in Las Vegas at the time. And I got hired. I think 2 weeks later, I was on a flight to Las Vegas to meet you guys at this convention. To be fair, at the time, I didn't know anything about tequila or how it's made or what it's made. I knew how to drink it and I knew how to sell it on like promotional tables at Total Wine. But I remember being there and I was super excited. I met Jeff, I had met Jose, I had met Mr. Michael, and we set up a 10 by 10 booth at WSWA, and we set up 5 or 8 of these like acrylic glass shelves that you wanted to set up. And the next day we were up and running and kicking, and it was like super exciting. And I remember people were coming up and asking about prices. I didn't even have like a price list, but I was like, don't leave, I'll get it for you, let's go. The show ended a really good success. I was like, okay, if this is a little bit of what I'm gonna do, like let's go for it. And then the next week you sent me to Mexico for, I think it was about 45 days, 30 days. the
Maybe
weeks
30.
kind of,
Yeah.
it was the 30 days, so it runs together. And you literally put me to work in every single position of the distillery. So I knew that I always wanted to work for a Mexican company because I'm Mexican. And even though I'm born here, I feel sometimes that I was raised more Mexican than I was raised American. And so for me, it was an amazing opportunity to even to be able to say that I was down in Mexico getting trained on it. And I enjoyed every single little bit of it. And there was days that I was like, what am I doing here? There was also days that I felt like the princess in the tower, because I didn't know anybody, nobody was there. But every single day I was learning something, and every single day I was meeting someone new. And for me, that's everything. I feel that the day that I stop learning is the day that, I don't know, I think it'll be my last day on this earth, because I legitimately like to learn and be around people that get to teach me. And I've had that opportunity with you.
So now you talk about that you learned what is behind the bottle.
I did.
Which is a lot of steps.
I did. And I remember specifically in my training, and I was in Mexico, and I had asked you why, because I came from sales. I do sales. That's what I'm good at. We've known that. But you were training me in everything. And so there was even like a point where I had to just kind of like shadow, the ladies who cook for you and the ladies who make sure that everything kind of runs in the distillery. And I remember very specifically that you told me, and this stayed with me forever. I had brought something up and you told me, what makes you think that you're better than the lady that cleans my floors? And at that time I was a little bit taken aback, because I was like, no, that's not what I meant. And you were like, no, what you need to understand is that you're not any better than the person who cleans my floors or the agaveros que giman the agaves, because I require every single one of them to produce 1 liter of tequila. And that for me was so powerful, because it showed me how much you cherish your employees and the people who work for you, and how it's literally a beehive. It's a beehive of all these moving parts. And I mean, you mentioned it, on top of your houses and everything else. I am in awe for so many years of how you mastered to put it together, and just the respect that people carry for you. And things like that is who you are as a core of a person. Miss Celia, it's so admirable. I love it.
Yeah. Let me tell you that we all learn, we all went through up and downs in life, and you treasure what other people do for you, because we are in this earth only one time, and we have to treasure every single person that is around us, with the good and the bad, and take the good and take it and run away. So many stories, Samantha, to tell the audience, and so many good things that have been coming through our lives together. You are one of my kids as well. And you know that. We went through the COVID together. With a lot of up and downs. But I don't know why. But I have a special effect for you. And I think it's important you to know, and everybody know, that have feelings as well. And I would like for you to tell the audience the positions that you've been from the beginning to now, and what are the experiences that you have been through?
I'm sorry. I mean, what haven't we done, Miss Celia? So I started in sales, and I started working the market with Casa Maestri. At
The local market, no?
the local markets, yeah. So we started in the local market with MaxCore. that was also an experience as well. I remember it's really interesting, and I don't know if it was me or if it was the time or how it happened, but I felt like a lot of my training was kind of like, figure it out. But it also was very much like, I'm going to, and it's fine, and we'll figure this out together. So I remember the first time entering the domestic market. Again, I had never sold tequila before. And you told me go meet Pablo, which I believe Pablo is actually going to be one of your other guests for it. So we had scheduled a training with Pablo. And I remember that was also the first time I met Eduardo. And I remember going into the Mexico's office. And again, I think I was like 25 at the time. So it was like cute, happy, like, yeah, let's go. And I remember walking in. And Pablo's like, hey, Samantha, how are you? And then out of nowhere, all I see is Eduardo coming down the stairs. Just, where is he? Pablo! Da-da-da-da-da, and just starts yelling about him, about losing some restaurant. And at the time, I'm just like, I'll wait over here. There's nowhere. And he goes, no, you can get it too. And you come over here. And I was like, oh, okay. And so I'm just sitting there next to Pablo getting punished for it. And I was like, okay, this is interesting. So we get in the car, and Pablo's like, yeah, that's just how he is. It's fine. And I was just like, yeah, no, I'm fine. It's cool. So we ended up going. He gave me the full training.
So you went to drive with the wholesaler employee, which is Pablo.
Absolutely.
To visit the market.
Yes, we went to go visit the market. My first liquor store I ever entered was a Fiesta Mart, a Taco y Mas Fiesta location. And he taught me everything. I mean, he taught me the bottles, the positioning, the faces. So a lot of what people don't understand, or at least what I didn't understand, and I think it's very important from behind the bottle, is that everything is so meticulously laid out from the moment that you decide that you want to start a brand to the moment that you want to put it on the shelf. Everything is just kind of married together, and it falls into a consensus. So for example, the height of the bottle. Our bottle is about 17 inches tall. So what we found is that it only can go on the top shelf because all the other shelves are on average 15 inches. How wide the bottle is. So all of those little things Pablo taught me, and it was the nom. I didn't even know that tequila had a nom or what it meant to have a nom. And I think at the time, this was pre-COVID, so a lot of people were just now starting to get into tequila. And I think that's also what kind of helped, because at the time, I believe we were selling, 1,500 cases, I think, in the year. And I think at the end of the year, we were able to get that up closer to like 7,000. Well, no, it was like 3,000 the first year. And then it finally like grew to where we was. But going into that domestic market, it was challenging for me because I was working for WeWork beforehand, and I was used to selling on the spot. You want an office? I have an office. It's the most beautiful offices that we have right now in the region. Sign, doing, next one. And now I just got back from this high. I went to WSWA, got all of this interest. Now I'm in Mexico for a month. I come back and I'm being trained in the domestic market. And so it was all of this very
different type of situations that you encountered that they are not the same.
Exactly. From one, it was just kind of taking it all in. And now I had to put into work everything that I was trained for. And it's kind of started piecing together how much I didn't know or how much my ignorance in the market was. And I think I ended up using that towards my advantage in the beginning, because I would be able to walk into the store and be like, hey, buy my tequila. Oh, you've never tried it? Yeah, try it. But it was also a lot of no's. I think I would go days sometimes going from liquor store to liquor store to liquor store, and no, I don't know, it's too expensive, or no, I don't know that brand, or no, I already have too much tequilas for it. And it was something I had to get used to. It was something at the time, it made me grow a lot, but it was something that I needed to get used to.
But you think it because what is inside the liquid, and then you accomplish the sales when the people try?
Yes, I never had anyone who tried it who didn't buy it. So the challenge was to get their time. And I think as a salesperson, when you're so used to going where the leads are brought to you compared to now you have to go and find the leads, that was the big challenge, right? Because now I have to convince you on why you have to bring in my tequila bottle. And because you're competing with all these other tequilas that are also on the shelf. But once they tried it, I never had anyone who said that they didn't like it. I did have people who preferred a sweeter profile because at the time, the other tequila that was becoming very popular was Aditivo. And they had like that twirl bottle and the shot and everything. But anyone who genuinely enjoyed tequila enjoyed specifically our reposado.
Yeah, because we made it very natural. So fast forward today, or when you start getting in, after you pass sales, you continue selling, but in different way.
Yeah.
With the conventions and be in charge of a other company, working for another people indirectly and directly with us. It's like a duo.
Yeah.
How about the duty-free market that is your main responsibility right now? How the differences between one and another?
Oh my God, it's like taking, it's just flipping it upside down. It's completely different. To your point, before I go into the duty-free market, I didn't answer the second part of your question, was after I went into sales, that's when Jeff was looking to really kind of kick off Platinum Brands, which was the importer company. And that switched me from working the domestic market to now I was responsible for starting from the bottom up the import company. So it was finding out, how to import, how to manage a warehouse, how to drive a forklift. Like I didn't even know I didn't even know I was going to have to need to drive a forklift, but the necessity came and I was like, why not? I mean, it's like driving a car. So then we grew that to a certain potential. COVID happened. I had a baby also, literally like the exact same time. So my world on that side had also kind of been turned upside down. And I think one thing that I will also always remember before I switched to the duty-free market is that during the COVID, and I think we always talk about it as well, is that you have a vision for always thinking like 2 years ahead. So for example, during COVID, I remember that you asked me to make videos, videos for the tequilas and videos for representation and different kind of things. And at the time I was like, why are we doing this? And then now here we are sitting in a podcast, having our conversations about what's behind the bottle. But it's always having that insight. So we went from doing our own domestic market. You had the vision that, potentially there might be an opportunity to get a new importer for the brand. So we started doing the effort of setting Platinum Brands up. And then the vision switched, we're set in the domestic market. We need to outsource outside of the U.S. because the sales during COVID were doing this. But when the sales were doing this, you were already thinking 2 years ahead of what happens when the sales do this.
We're going to go down.
Exactly. And we were all sitting there, we're like, we're exported 90% than what we were supposed to export last year. And here you are being like, no. We got to switch to a different market and because there's no sales. And we're like, yeah, there's sales. And you're like, no. Which then led us to go into the duty-free market. We had been going to the duty-free market since I started. And I remember for about 2 or 3 years, we never got any interest. We would be like, yeah, here we are. We're at Casa Maestri. Oh, yeah, beautiful bottles. And then in 2022, you said, Samantha, if we don't get serious about the duty-free market, we're going to need help in the domestic market as well. So we went in that year solidifying that we were going to come back with customers, which we did. I remember walking up to Carasam in 2021 and saying,
Who's Carasam?
So Carasam so the duty-free market is very interesting. And it gets broken down very similar to the domestic market. So you have distributors, you have importers, you have warehouses. And so Carasam is one of the largest distributors or importers into the Caribbean for any liquor, wine, or honestly anything for the cruise lines and also for the cruise ships. So they're a really big player in the Caribbean market. It would be similar to saying RNDC or Southern Glaciers in the domestic market. So I remember that we were in 2021. At that time, we were still nobody in the Caribbean. And we went up to Carasam and we said, hey, we're going to be somebody. This is our portfolio. We would like for you guys to carry us. And they might as well have shut a door in our face. They were like, you're nobody. We don't want your business. Talk to us later. And I think that put like a chip on your shoulder. Actually, I know that put a chip on your shoulder because I remember you turning around the moment that they said no. And you're like, we're going to do it ourselves. And I'm sitting there like, okay, we're going to do it ourselves. And We did. We did. So that whole next year.
But now that we did, everybody wants us.
And now, and that's the beauty of it. Oh my God, that first year was, I remember even looking for a warehouse that would supply, because we had orders that were coming in, but it was one case of this, one case of that. I went 3 bottles of the flask. And I'm like, how do I put these orders together? Every warehouse that I would go to would be like, oh, we don't ship anything less than a container. So 10 pallets. Here I am trying to ship 10 cases, and they're telling me I need a minimum of 10 pallets. And so I finally found a warehouse. We ended up moving forward with it. Then come 2022, we go back to the duty-free show. We ended up solidifying clients because now we had a warehouse. We had product in Miami. We had all of the actual exports so that we could ship these out. And actually, I just looked this up yesterday. We had 15 orders in the first 60 days after the first duty-free show that we had. Well, after the 2022 duty-free show, which is when we went back to the show after you were told no by Sam. And we had 15 first clients in those first 60 days.
Yeah, but one of the things that we decided, if you remember too, is to hire 2 excellent brokers.
We did.
And we are very thankful for them.
Absolutely.
And they're been a key of especially your success.
Absolutely.
And they help you they walk you through a very different context, because duty-free is not just duty-free stores. It's duty-free stores inland, duty-free stores in the cruise ships, duty-free stores in airports. It's different divisions.
Yeah.
And then then you want to get into the, how you call the main organizations to have in the bar.
Yeah.
Like you did with Disney, Disney cruises, and on and on. So it is, we are very thankful that they taught us. And even we remember, say, Samantha, we need to make a map and say who is what, because there was a lot of confusion. Some islands are in English islands, other ones are US, and other ones are who knows where, French. And, so it's a different task to put the puzzle together for the duty free.
Oh, absolutely. I would say Jerome and Ken have been, the map, like you mentioned it, to the duty free market. I don't think we would have ever been able to map it out on our own. And, that was the help that we were looking for. And with that little bit of the help that we had, we were able to, right now, thankfully, we're in all of the Caribbean markets that we're going into it. But to your point, it's sometimes even now, when I try to explain the duty-free market and the intricates in and out, without an actual roadmap, it's so difficult. And I think the hardest part that people don't really understand, and that's something that you understood from the very beginning, is that you don't really make money in the Caribbean market.
Duty-free.
I'm sorry, in the duty-free market. The margins are crazy. So it really was
an investment for indirect marketing.
It was. And I think it's paid off. Like you mentioned, now we're on Disney Cruise Lines, and I believe it's the Treasure. It's the new ship that we're on. We're launching into Disney World with that same kind of light board that we're doing. We had the opportunity to pitch to Royal Caribbean, all of these really. So I think we're in the process of putting our face out there, and people at least know who we are and know our brand now. And I think it's just going to take a couple more years before, we really get the consumer base behind it.
What you will recommend a person that is coming with a new tequila? What are your recommendations to them?
For the duty-free market or just in general?
In general.
In general. Right now, my recommendation would be to really work it backwards and don't start from the beginning. So really have a map laid out of what your price point is going to be, who your demographic is going to be, what areas do you want to sell it in? Do you want to sell it in the duty-free market, or do you want to sell it in domestic? Have that plan laid out prior to you doing the investment of building the brand. I think right now the tequila market is a little bit saturated. However, I think that if someone comes with the right vision, there's still a really big opportunity for that brand to become a brand. It does take a lot of money and investment and time and effort, which is something throughout the years,
They had to consider that.
they have to consider that. So it's not necessarily an industry or a market that, although you do have those unicorns that are out there, it does take a serious amount of work, effort. Just even the tastings that you have to do. So my recommendation would be to just make sure that they're thinking ahead and where they want to end up before they start looking at the pretty bottles and the liquid and flying down to the distilleries. Because that's the fun part. The fun part is making it. Mm-hmm. The stress and the anxiety comes once you have it. Who do you sell it to?
Yeah.
And
Yeah, because the distribution market in the United States, like you say, is being saturated. But it's another market that they can go into. Or if they are owners of restaurants.
Exactly.
Or liquor stores where that is no-brainer.
There's an opportunity for sure. But like I said, I think they have to be very mindful about all of the regulations that are in place.
Can you share to us what is the impact in the moment from your perspective of a brand position in case of Casa Maestri? The challenges that you're getting into to get in the product, even though it's half of the price of other ceramics, the liquid tequila is excellent. That you have a product that is being carved, the bottles one by hand, and say Mexico, the charro, the caballo, whatever. But what is the moment that you say, I don't know how, but the challenges that you've been to put this brand in the market?
I think the challenges from the very beginning was that we were not a very well-known brand. And I think also one of the things that in hindsight we could have probably started to do from a long time ago was that specifically Destiladora del Valle has a large portfolio of tequilas.
Which people know now as a Casa Maestri.
Exactly, which people now know as Casa Maestri. But at the time, these are all the different brands of tequilas, but it wasn't known as Casa Maestri. And so that presented its own challenges because we had individual brands that we were building up independently, which I think now it's a house. So we have all of these brands that we build together as a house. And so I think that's been very detrimental in making sure that the brand has grown, that we've had representation in the market. I think also the hard part is people see it as a very beautiful bottle and they love the liquid, but I think sometimes it doesn't have the market representation that we would have yet. Specifically, I think one of the biggest pushbacks that we get is that we're based in Texas. And Texas, obviously, to get into, well, not obviously because a lot of people don't know, but in case you didn't know, Texas has a 4-tier system instead of 3. So one thing that you told me a long time ago was there's 2 ways to build a brand. You get sales and retail, so you make money in retail, but you build a brand in on-premise. So the recognition, the brand awareness is done inside of the restaurants, inside of the bars, because people see it, they want it, they ask for it. Whereas at the retail is where people buy it because it's a pretty bottle, because it's something, but it's not something that they're necessarily loyal to. So I think our biggest pushback, or at least in my market, has been that because Specs owns almost 90% of the 4-tier system here in Texas, which means that if I wanted to get the brand inside of a restaurant, I not only have to sell it to my distributor, but I now have to sell it to a store who then locally distributes it to that account. Having that additional middle person there has been huge in not being able for us to represent the brand, especially in our home state, as it should be.
Anything that you can, well, I appreciate that you came today and talked to us about all this beautiful experience, but anything that you can share to what is your favorite memory?
Ooh. Favorite memory. There's just so many. There's just, I don't know. I think you interviewing me.
Okay.
I think,
That's
honestly,
good.
I think interviewing me, this last interview and my first interview, I think we can probably connect it as.
Yes. Well, we appreciate all the audience to be with us today. I think it was a fun episode. And hopefully you can continue watching Behind the Bottle, Tequila Tales. And Samantha, again, thank you very much for being with us today.
Thank you, Miss Celia. I love you.
I love you too.
That's it for today's episode. Thanks for listening to Behind the Bottle, Tequila Tales by Celia Maestri. The next story's already aging to perfection, so don't miss it. See you soon. Don't forget to follow us on social media and your favorite podcast listening platform.